This is the Solid Signal Podcast, and the week is December 9th, 2019. We're rolling around to the end of the year, and it got me thinking about the best Solid Signal stories of the year. This has certainly been a busy year for a lot of things in the world, but let's keep it to just the kind of products that we offer at Solid Signal. And I thought about three different things that came around in 2019 that I thought would really be kind of good to discuss and say, okay, these were three trends that really shaped what we are doing and what we did. And I have a feeling you'll agree. And if not, hey, get involved, get engaged. Leave a comment on one of our social channels and our blog. If you watch this podcast on YouTube, then leave a comment there, because that's what this is about. It's a community. Anyway, story number one I had was the almost alarming need to rescan for channels in some markets. The FCC wanted to take a chunk of channels away from broadcast television to give it to 5G, and we're all in favor of that. Believe me, we all are. But it seems like the way that they did it wasn't really very sensible. There were some people in some markets who ended up scanning for channels 4 or 5 times this year in order to get everything that they needed. And I'm also a little surprised that we didn't see more notices pop up on local television telling people to rescan. I know antenna television only represents about 4% of the viewing audience at this point in some markets. In some markets, it's higher. But there just wasn't the kind of noise that was brought to this that you saw in previous years. And so sometimes people found that they did not have a channel they were expecting and they didn't know why. That's when they come to the Solid Signal blog for information, and we are happy to oblige, of course. The good news is that all of this should be complete by mid-2020, and if you haven't had to rescan in about 2 or 3 months, you're probably all done. There are still some markets that are going to have to go through this, and well, when it's all said and done, we should have at least a little bit of a break from it, maybe a couple of years until we maybe get to next-gen TV. Trend number 2 is the growth in consumer 5G. We're starting to see 600 megahertz 5G across the country finally, and it rolled out in several major cities in 2018 and a lot more cities in 2019. The hardware is there for the most part. If you're an Android fan, which overwhelming majority of people are, that you're going to find the Samsung Galaxy 5G is perfect for you. And if you're an Apple fan, there's a strong possibility you'll see a 5G phone in 2020. The good news is that the network will be there and ready for you, at least the 600 megahertz component of it. The millimeter wave part is still taking a lot more work, and I think that we all expected that, because in order to get that set up with the many, many more broadcast hours that are going to need, and the phone needing a lot more power in order to make it happen, it's still going to be a work in progress, I think, through 20 or even 21. The third thing I wanted to talk about isn't really a widespread kind of thing, but this is an important product that you'll find at solidsignal.com. We're seeing the first in-building cellular repeaters for the FirstNet network. First responders are incredibly important, and the FirstNet system is a cellular network that only works for first responders when there's an emergency. If you go to solidsignal.com and you search for the word FirstNet, you're going to see a bunch of new equipment that's designed to provide better in-building cellular solutions for FirstNet customers, and some of them are even at a very, very reasonable price. It just depends on the area that you want to cover. If you're trying to cover 100,000 square feet, you're going to pay a lot for a system, but for a regular sized building like a small kind of satellite police station or firehouse, you're going to find that there are some really, really good solutions out there. This is important. No, there are not yet mobile solutions for FirstNet cell boosting, but an in-building solution is incredibly important, especially since a lot of first responder locations, police departments, firehouses, that sort of thing, are densely built and do a really great job of blocking cell signals. If you have a FirstNet phone and you're complaining about the service, go to solidsignal.com and check out the cell boosters that are available for FirstNet now. You know, These three trends were maybe not the most earth-shattering things in the world. Maybe they were not the kind of things that really made as much of a difference as you would think to the world. But to our solid signal customers, they were incredibly big trends and incredibly big shifts, and they lead into 2020. Of course, we'd like to think that we can separate the world into these little chunks where from January to January that we have this happen, and then from the next January to the next January, you have that happen. But it's not really like that. In the next 12 months, we should see a lot more 5G coming out. We should see a lot more information about next-gen TV, the new 4K over-the-air standard, if it's going to happen or not going to happen. And all in all, I think it's going to be a very exciting 2020. We got a bunch of new stuff that's already in the pipeline at solidsignal.com, so you're going to have to keep checking our site to find out what all of that stuff is. I'm looking forward to another fantastic year. I hope that you are. That's about it for me on the podcast this week. Make sure you like this, share it on social channels. Please do me a favor and subscribe because we're trying to build up subscribers. We had a big jump in subscribers last month, trying to keep it going. Please go ahead and continue to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. And if you do not want to subscribe to the podcast, just subscribe to the channel in general. You're going to see a bunch more content coming out there, and it's going to be real exciting. That's about it for me, and I will see you next week.